Even though these 5 steps are straightforward, and there's a systematic process to get from here to there, most business owners don't do this. The truth is, most people who think they're running a business are actually just self-employed, which means they don't really have a business. They just work for themselves. They may have a small team of people helping them, but they're the hardest working employee in their own company. In fact, only 5 to 10% of contractors ever make the transition between being self-employed and being actual business owners. And the reason is, it comes down to their mindset. So what is the difference between the mindset of a self-employed person and a business owner? The mindset of a self-employed person is that they feel they're good at a skill or a trade and they want more control over their life. Very often you can hear them say things like, I can do this better myself. And if it's got to be done right, it's got to be done by me. The mindset of a business owner is completely different. They first look at the market to determine what product or service is in high demand. Then they ask themselves a question: how can I build a system and a team that can deliver this product or service faster, better, and more profitably than anyone else? Self-employed people, on the other hand, are just trying to find the right person to take care of everything. And they always complain there are no good people out there. They know they need to build systems, but they're always too busy. They don't have the time, and the right systems always cost too much money, and it's just not worth it. The mindset of a business owner is to find a way to build a better system and break everything down into small, easily manageable steps. Then they take people who are not highly skilled, but train them well on small parts of the system, so they get good at doing the one thing. These people understand they're not trying to replace themselves. They're looking to build a system that will replace them and build a team that will run different parts of the system. So it becomes very easy to find and train a team. And if this is starting to sound familiar, this is basically the model Henry Ford used to revolutionize the auto industry and made America the leader in the car industry for over 100 years. And this model has been adopted to great success by almost every other industry. And now you can apply it to your business. Self-employed people always want to be in control, which means they will be at the center of all decision making. And then they will complain that their employees are always asking them questions and cannot make simple decisions. Everything has to flow through them, and therefore they become the bottleneck in the growth of their own business, which ends up as they can never take vacations. And if they do, their phone is always blowing up. And as a self-employed person, you're always frustrated that this is not the life you imagined when you started the business. Business owners, on the other hand, focus on delegation and accountability. They develop high levels of training, track the numbers, and create incentives that reward accountability. Such a business can run on systems by a team of people trained on using those systems, and the owner is not needed in the operations of the business. The owner's job is to focus on promoting the business while the team and the systems handle the work, which results in a highly profitable, fast-growing business that can scale exponentially while the number of hours that an owner works go down. Such a business provides the owner with a great life, with an abundance of time, money, but most importantly, energy. Once you get the systems and the team right, you can now focus on growing the business. It's important to understand that every business goes through 5 stages of growth, and we call these 5 stages the power model. In order to grow, you need to know what stage of growth you're in, so you understand what strategies are needed to take you to the next level. So what are these 5 stages of growth? The first stage is invisible. When you start a business, not many people know you yet, and so your business is invisible. At this stage, your number one job is to make your business visible. That is, get as many people to find out about your product or services as possible. At this stage, you may not have a lot of money, so you do this through personal effort. You go out there, you meet people, you post on social media, you talk to as many people as possible who could be your clients or who could know people who could be your potential clients. This is a time for maximum hustle. If you do this well, you'll be rewarded by moving up to the next stage, which is chaos. Because at this stage, the business does not have the systems or the teams to handle increasing amount of work. So as work comes in, the ball can get dropped. Deadlines can be missed, budgets can be exceeded, and customers might start get frustrated. The business can even exist in a cycle of feast or famine. Sometimes lots of work is coming in. Other times there is no work and the business might even be losing money. At this stage, running a business is extremely stressful, and most contractors can't seem to get past this stage. The most important thing to do here is to take the steps to move to the next stage, which is stability. The stage of stability isn't perfect. The owner is still involved in running the business, but at this stage, the business is capable of handling a steady stream of work and can handle the work profitably. The way you move from chaos to stability is to build systems in the business and hire a team of people and get that team trained on using those systems. These are the 9 key systems that we mentioned earlier. As you start to build out your systems and train your team, your business can grow without the owner needing to work more and more hours. The goal is to take the business to the next level, which is abundance. This is where you as an owner have an abundance of time, money, but most importantly, energy. And you move your business from stability to abundance in 3 ways. The first is to take a look at the services that you offer your clients and just go out and find a lot more clients. This is called organic growth. The second way is to take a look at your clients and see what services they spend money on that you don't currently provide. Then see if you can add those services to your business. A great way to do this is through acquisitions. That is, instead of trying to develop a service from scratch, you go and buy a company that's already providing that service. So you can quickly add those services and then potentially add on an entirely new client base. This can potentially double the size of your business in 30 to 60 days post-acquisition. The third way is to take what you do and expand to multiple geographies, which is providing the same services but in multiple locations. Acquisitions can also play a key role in this strategy. Once you combine these 3 growth strategies with a business that has systems and a team trained on using those systems, the business can quickly grow to 2 times, 5 times, or 10 times of its previous size, while the amount of time the owner has to work in the business starts to approach 0. The owner's job now is to manage this business, but always be out there promoting the company, which creates even more awareness in the market and more work starts to come in. This creates a hugely positive and upward cycle of growth for the business. And as a side note, the IRS will be very interested in your business at this stage. In the previous times, they couldn't really care less. But now, since you're making money, they want to know if they can get a piece of it. The final stage of growth in a business is to get to a position of power. In any segment of the market, there's always a handful of companies that are in a position of power. These are the first companies that we think of when we want something. For example, we FedEx something, we call an Uber or a Lyft, we Google it, or we ask ChatGPT. Now, the important thing to understand is you don't need to be a big company like these to be in a position of power. I know an ice cream shop on Main Street where I live, where given rain or shine, there's always a line of teenagers out the door. Now, on that street, for ice cream, that shop is in a position of power. The key difference between companies in a position of power and others is that companies in a position of power don't need to go looking for work. Work comes looking for them. These handful of companies are getting 60-70% of the work in their space, and everybody else is fighting for the remaining 30-40%. Let me give you an example of a client of ours who worked with us to grow his business from $1 million to $50 million in annual revenue. I remember he came to my office at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday morning and said he's just coming from a bar. I was surprised, of course, and I asked him if everything was good. Wife good, kids fine, what's going on? Then he just dropped an $8 million contract on the table and said he just signed this at the bar. Now, this is a guy who has a business in the US, but he lives in Belize because he loves deep sea fishing. And many times when he goes fishing, he invites the VPs of many HOA companies that he works with to go with him. So whenever these VPs have a big contract, guess who they're thinking of first? Of course, him. And one of these VPs wanted to have a meeting with him at the bar. And that's where he just signed this contract. He even gets shown competitors' bids. You're not supposed to do that, but hey, that's how life works. He's an example of a contractor that grew his business from chaos to now being in a position of power. So how can we summarize everything we've covered so far into something that's easy to understand? To do that, it's important to understand the difference between content and context. So let's take a cup of water. In this example, the water is the content and the cup is the context, which means the water will take whatever shape the cup is in. Let's say you made a lot of effort to find the best water in the world. You climbed the highest mountains, went to the Swiss Alps, and found this perfect untouched water. And then you brought it back and you put it into this cup. Now you have the best water in this cup. But then you find out that the cup has a crack in it. What happens to that water? It falls on the floor. How good is that water now? Did it matter that this was the best water on the planet? No, because at this point, it's undrinkable. So how do you apply this to business? What is the content in any business? The content is the product or service that you provide, the systems and the team that you hire, and the money that your business makes. That is the content of a business. What is the context of a business? What determines how strong the business is and how resilient it is in stressful environments? That is its culture, the rules and the standards the business operates by, and how people treat each other in that business. Whenever we talk to business owners about their companies, they all want to just talk about the content, which is our team, our systems, our services, and maybe the money they're making or not making. But they never really discuss the context. Because the real question is, how much attention and effort has the business owner paid to creating a solid company culture? Is this a place where good people want to come and work? And if they do join, is this a place where they're going to stay and they see themselves as part of the future growth curve of this company? And this is what separates good companies from everyone else, regardless of the size of the business. And the final piece of the context is the size of the cup. The bigger the cup, the more water it can hold. So, what determines the size of business that you can build? That is your vision and your mindset. So to build a fast-growing, successful, multi-million-dollar business, it is important to understand the difference between content and context. And get the context right. Don't just focus on the content. This is what will allow you to live a life of abundance, where you have an abundance of time, money, but most importantly, energy. And this is when being a business owner feels great. If you've made it this far, congratulations. You're way ahead of most people. If this 5-step process connected for you and you want to see how you can implement this process into your business, then take the next step and book a free business strategy session with one of our highly experienced coaches. We'll learn about your business and show you the exact process needed to implement these 5 steps into your company. Now, you're exactly where hundreds of contractors were when they were exposed to this information. And some of them took the next steps. And you've seen their stories before. Most people just struggle their whole life, being the hardest working employee in their own company. Don't be that guy. Be like the top 5% and create a more abundant future for yourself and your family. Click the button below and book the free business strategy session and start the process of building an amazing and abundant life.